everyone. I hope you're all doing really well. Today I'm so excited to be sharing with you my very first update for my Pan Those Eyeshadows Project Pan 2023. I am so excited and so motivated by this project pan already because I've been making some amazing progress on all 4 of my focus eyeshadows. And in fact, I have some pans to share with you today, which is so exciting. That doesn't often happen in my very first update for this project, but it happened. If you're not familiar with this project pan, the ultimate goal is to hit pan, so that shiny little metal pan at the bottom, in as many eyeshadows in my collection as possible. And I do that with a combination of 3 randomized eyeshadows as well as 1 hand-selected eyeshadow. So I really have very little say in what the color story is that I'm working with month to month, but that's what makes it really fun for me. I love that I can play with new color combinations, be inspired by different palettes and pairing them together in my collection. It's really fun for me. Everyone approaches this project pan in their own unique way, and that's what makes it also exciting as a viewer of Pan Those Eyeshadows is everyone kind of takes it and runs with it in their own way. The project creator, which is my friend Alexi, did it entirely different than I do this project myself, and it just makes it so fun. So yeah, I am just incredibly excited to hop on into today's update. Let's just do it. Let's just get on into it because I can't wait to share with you how everything is looking. I've already swatched out my 4 focused shadows on the back of my hand right here. So as you can see, I've had quite an interesting color story to be working with over this last month. I think it's super fun and quite fresh, but still is true to me as well. I like that this has a little bit of a grungy sort of vibe. And these palettes and these shadows have been really fun to play with in combination with one another, and I've created quite a lot of looks, which I'll share with you today in this update as well. As I talk about each of the shadows, you'll see some looks where they are featured, and I always have fun sharing the looks that I've created with you, because I've created a lot of unique and interesting looks over this past month because of this really beautiful color story. So let's talk about these shades in the order that they've been swatched. The first one here is from my Melt Cosmetics Smoke Sessions palette, which is this gorgeous palette right here. The shade that I'm focusing on is called Black Widow, and it is quite a dirty golden sort of shade. It has definitely a green shift to it, almost like a mossy green kind of tone to it. And it is a really unique and kind of challenging texture to work with, but a really beautiful shade. I do have it all over my lids today. I do have a glitter kind of layered on top of it, and obviously a mustard throughout my crease, but it is what's on the majority of my lid, and I just feel like this is a really wearable green shadow. I've actually reached for it 8 times since I rolled it into the project pan, and here is what it is looking like today. So I don't have pan in it yet. I wouldn't imagine after 8 uses with this particular formula that could happen. I really didn't have that much evident progress on it because it is very challenging. It's a little bit chunky. It's a little bit inconsistent in its pressing, but when it's on the lids, like once you actually get it onto the lids, it really is beautiful. You can really blend it out and make it look quite smooth like it does in the swatch, but it does take a lot of work to do that. I usually use my fingers so that I can kind of warm it up and kind of even things out. Versus when I use a brush with this shadow, I do find that it disperses not very evenly. It's very sheer, kind of patchy. So using a finger is definitely the key, and that's why there is most definitely a really good dip happening in there now. It likely will take me quite a bit more time to actually hit pan on it because using my finger, I'm really rubbing into the pan. So I'm actually covering a lot of the surface area whenever I reach for this. You can see it's a very wide kind of valley throughout the pan. So it definitely is gonna take me some time, but I'm not only enjoying reaching for this particular shadow, but enjoying really reaching into this palette as a whole. It is such a beautiful, fun, grungy, and really impactful eyeshadow palette, so it's been a treat to reach for it regardless. Maybe next month, if I manage to reach for it at least 8 more times, we could see pan, but I don't know that that feels even likely right now. When I'm looking at how deep the pans are on the shades that I have hit pan on, it doesn't seem that likely to me. It doesn't seem that likely, but anything is possible. I don't know. The next swatch here is a matte pinky coral shade, which comes from my Melt Cosmetics Millennial Pinks palette. The shade in particular is called Flamingo Dream, and it is such a fresh, vibrant matte. It is super pigmented, but I had hardly used it in advance of rolling it into this project pan. So I'm really happy to say that I've now used it 7 times since rolling it into this project. Today is the 7th use, and I actually have it on as a soft blush. I really didn't apply very much of it because, like I said, it is ultra pigmented. So I wasn't expecting to be able to hit pan on this, and I have not yet. It truly doesn't even look that used. Like, it hardly looks like there's any usage on it whatsoever. I don't know that in 7 more uses or even in 20 more uses, I'd be able to hit pan on this, because matte shadows are so rich and so pigmented that they go really far. But I'm gonna keep using this for a minimum of 8 more uses and then determine at that point whether it's something I want to keep working on in this project or move away from and roll it out and give myself an opportunity to hit pan on something else. But nevertheless, I'll be working on this eyeshadow for the coming month. I'm aiming to use it 8 times, and given that I was able to use it 7 times this first month of the project, I don't see that being a problem whatsoever. And hopefully we'll see a little bit of a dip at that point. Like, you can tell this has been used, but it really does not look that different from when I rolled it into the project pan. So hopefully we'll see a little bit of a change in the coming month. This next swatch right here is such a beautiful and interesting silver shade. It comes from my Colourpop and Hocus Pocus palette. This is the All Hallows Eve eyeshadow palette. The shade that I'm working on is called 17th Century, and it is a beautiful sparse silver that actually has a little bit of like a champagne-y kind of vibe to it. This is a shadow that this month I worked on heavily. In fact, I did a focus week with it on my Instagram. If you're not following me over there, I do have a highlight so you could check it out. But I do these 5-day challenges where I select one of my focus eyeshadows and I try to use it in 5 different ways in that week with 5 different unique looks. And it's just a way to really play with those eyeshadows and to have some creative fuel from one of my focus eyeshadows. I can choose to pair it with other focus shades at that time or other eyeshadows from my collection just in general. And it's such a fun thing to do. In fact, I have so much fun with it that I'm aiming to try to do it once a month with a focus shadow from this project pan ongoing. I haven't said that out loud yet, so it's stressful to try to commit myself to it, but I think it's something that I'd like to do ongoing, and it's just a fun way to explore the collection that I have. I was having so much fun with the shade 17th Century that I reached for it 14 times through this month, and here is what it's looking like today. As you can see in the middle of the pan, right smack dab in the middle, I do have a fresh new pan in here. I was not anticipating actually that I'd be able to hit pan in this shadow because it is newer to my collection. It didn't have a ton of usage on it prior to rolling it into this project, but I did spend quite a bit of time with this depotted from this palette. These are magnetic pans that are really easy to remove if you have a magnet. I have these super awkward little tiny magnets here, but you can see if you just place the magnet on there, then you can remove the eyeshadow. And through actually removing it from the palette, I realized that it's only about half of the depth of a traditional single eyeshadow. So for reference, this is Makeup Geek Peach Smoothie. And I don't know if you can actually even tell, it's really hard to show, but it's actually only about half the depth. So it was really easy to hit pan on it because of that. And Colourpop Metallics, they do have quite a few different types of formulas. This one in particular is a lot more loosely pressed. It's very malleable. In fact, when I removed the eyeshadow from the pan using the magnet, I kind of created a divot in here that didn't exist. So it's very soft and just really easily manipulated, and that's why I was able to hit pan on it in those 14 uses. But I'm so thrilled about it. I had so much fun playing with this eyeshadow, and it's fun to see that I did hit a pan in it through this project in that first month. So stay tuned until the end of the video because I will be randomizing a shadow to replace that one, as that was one that I did randomize. Moving right along though into the final and 4th shade in this project pan. This is the one that I did hand select on my own. It's also a Colourpop eyeshadow, and this shade is called High Strung. It's this really beautiful rosy bronze kind of shade. It's truly unique and something that I've had in my collection for quite a lot of time, so I wanted to try to hit pan on it in this first month because I already had really great progress on it. I had quite a good dip happening in it already. I have reached for it 7 times since I rolled it into the project pan, and here is what High Strung is looking like today. There is a beautiful little shiny pan right in the middle of this pan as well. So I've actually hit pan on 2 of my focus eyeshadows already. Half of the project is going to be getting reset in today's update, which is so exciting. This shadow is one that I just find is really flattering and really easy to wear on the eyes, so it was no problem reaching for it that 7 times. And it was really easy to hit pan on it because I had a lot of progress, but also because this is getting a little bit older, so it requires a little bit more building. So 7 uses doesn't mean I just dipped into this pan 7 individual times. It means that I wore it 7 times in a look. Sometimes to get the impact that I really wanted, I would dip into it like 4 or 5 times to get a really high impact metallic on this, because it is a little bit older. It is coming up a little bit more sheer. It's not as vibrant as it used to be, but I'm really happy to have a little pan on here and to be rolling it out of this project in today's update. Like I said, half of the project is getting reset, which is just so exciting to me. In addition to the 2 shades that I did hit pan on through this project, I actually have some bonus pans to share with you. So the first one is from my Catrice Basic Bay palette. I recently hit pan on the shade #basic, which is just a very light creamy shade. I used this a couple of times to set down my eyeshadow primer and to help things to really blend in my crease and all that kind of good stuff. So I hit pan on that relatively recently and was really happy to see that brand new pan in this palette. This is actually a palette that I reach for very regularly, so it's nice to see it looking much more loved. And then I also recently hit pan in a shade from my Urban Decay Born to Run palette. I actually hit pan on this when I was doing my palette bingo, and the shade that I hit pan on is the shade Riff right there. This is actually one that you may be familiar with from my last year's Pan Those Eyeshadows project pan, because this was one of my hand-selected shadows in that project, and unfortunately I wasn't able to hit pan on it with my 22 tracked uses in that project. And I tracked how much I've used it since that project pan. Let me pull up my number here actually. I have it in a different document, but last year, like I said, I used it 22 times in my project pan, and I reached for it 16 additional times since rolling it out of that project pan to try to hit pan on it. So I reached for it collectively tracked 38 times to hit that pan. That's a lot, but this is a really dense matte eyeshadow. So I've reached for this a minimum, I'd say of 45 or 50 uses altogether. Prior to tracking, I had reached for it previously. So yeah, that's just something that I really wanted to share with you, because I put in a lot of freaking work to hit pan on this, and it finally has the tiniest speck of pan. I'm really excited to see how things are going to shift from this color story. So we're getting rid of 17th Century and High Strung as focus shadows. So we're gonna be rolling in something new to replace 17th Century, which was a randomized eyeshadow. So I actually have my Tiny Decisions app here. So let's pull that new addition to the project in together. My next focus shade is going to be from my Natasha Denona Metropolis palette, which is a palette that I love to reach for. In fact, I'm wearing it today. And the focus shade is going to be called Mace. So swatches are removed, and I have grabbed my Natasha Denona Metropolis palette, but I'm actually not familiar with what the shade Mace is. So let's figure it out together. And it is that shadow right there. It is something that I think I'm going to use in a very similar way to High Strung. Quite honestly, it's a little bit more neutral. It's not quite as rosy as High Strung, but it is something that I'm going to be able to use very often. There it is right there. It's super impactful, really beautiful. Almost leans a tiny bit coppery, if I'm not mistaken, on my hand, but versus in the pan, it definitely looks a little bit more cool toned. You can see I don't have a ton of usage on here. I have used it though several times. So it's something that I think is going to take an absolute eternity to be able to hit pan on. Knowing my kind of track record with the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette, these take forever because they're so rich and so pigmented, but it is something that I'm excited to kind of bring into my rotation to use more regularly and to focus on this shadow, but that will give me an opportunity to reach for these shades, or a reminder rather, to reach for these shades more often, and I can't wait to do so. And now that I see this color palette together, I have to pick out something else to add to this color story on my own to replace High Strung. I feel a little like nervous about that. I really don't know where to go with this. I could go in truly any number of directions. So let me spend some time with my collection and sort out where it is that I want to go with that. So I was trying to figure out something that I could realistically hit pan on this coming month, but also works with these shades and is something that I can use in tandem with basically all of them. And that is quite a ask from my collection, I suppose. So I've come to a decision, and I don't know if I'm certain in this decision, but it's where we're going, okay? So it is a depotted eyeshadow from the Colourpop Yes Please palette, which is such an old palette, incredibly old. I depotted that palette many years ago, and I still have eyeshadows from it that I don't have pan on, but this one does look very well loved. It is a soft golden shade, and this one is called Butter Cake, and there is most definitely a dip in it, a pretty decent dip, and it's similar to the situation with High Strung. I know that this is an eyeshadow that I have really good usage on. It is an eyeshadow that is getting older, and so the formulation is a little bit more sheer. It does require a little bit more building to get the impact that I'm after. So that could work in my favor to be able to hit pan on this, but also this is a great shade that I could integrate with virtually all of these eyeshadows. I could wear it on the inner corner, so that requires a little bit more precision. I could wear it on the brow bone. I could wear this all over the lid. It really is something that is easily wearable in virtually any look. So there is a swatch of it right there. As you can see, it is kind of a warm golden shade, but it is a little bit more sheer, and it is truly something that will go with many a looks. And so I am really excited to actually add this into the color story. This looks very autumnal, but it still feels really wearable. And I do think that there is a chance I could hit pan on the shade Butter Cake in this coming month. So I'm gonna aim for that. That is the ultimate goal, that really is, especially with the shades that I do hand select. I don't actually want to use them a minimum of 15 times. I want to use the shades that I hand selected to hit pan on. I want to actually try to hit pan on these shades that I'm choosing for myself. So yeah, that, my friends, is the new color story. It's beautiful. Let me know some ways that you would want to wear these, ways that you would be interested in kind of pairing them together. If you're actually interested in seeing how I used all 4 of my previous Pan Those eyeshadow shades in a look, I did recently post a full face of all of my Project Pan items, including all 4 of my Pan Those eyeshadow shades. I was wearing every single thing that I'm currently panning in that video, and that was a lot of fun. But now we're moving on to this color palette, and I think I could wear these all pretty easily in a look together, and I'm definitely going to be doing that. So yeah, that is everything for today's update. This was a fun one for sure. I cannot wait to see what the coming months have in store for this Project Pan, but that is everything. Thank you so much for watching and for hanging out with me, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Maybe. Bye everyone.